It's that time again. It's time for Pod Sothoth, a Lovecraft book club. I am your co-host, Todd Beardsley, and I'm joined once again, which should be no surprise by now, here in episode 66.
Shocking.
Claire Reynolds.
Hello.
Attorney, wife, mother, lover,
It's true.
etc.
etc., etc.
It's actually pronounced X.
This is why our children will never listen to this.
Right.
I mean, there are many reasons why they'll never listen to it. But
Right.
That is one.
This is one of several.
Yes. They're disgusted by the idea of us flirting with each other.
In an audio format. So, hey, let's talk about this story, The White Ship, which you read
I did. Moments ago.
moments ago. And I've been doing homework all morning on The White Ship and listening to my Dreams and Nightmares soundtrack.
But that's the only way that I'll do it, is if I don't have to put in any effort.
Right, exactly. Check out
the
Claire's
This
podcast,
is the price you pay.
Not for Teacher.
I also don't put in any effort in that.
Right. Well, but this is not that podcast.
No.
This is the flagship podcast of Huge Success, LLC, Pod Sothoth, the Lovecraft Book Club. Yeah, we don't have anything coming up. I did hear that Kai Hastor's show at the London Lovecraft Festival went great.
Oh, good.
And he's hopeful to take it on the road and bring it to
fun.
Providence, probably in 2026.
Were all the agents like, but whose voice was that?
Yes.
Find me that man.
I did some voiceover work for that production, and I assume it went wonderfully. So, yeah. So, hey, other than that, I don't think we have anything coming up. Nothing here in March of 2025
No.
on the horizon yet.
Nope.
Let's just jump into it, shall we?
Let's do it. Let's crack on.
Crack on. Right. This is one of Lovecraft's earlier tales of terror. Terror not guaranteed.
Yeah.
It was published in 1919, in the November 1919 issue of the United Amateur first. It was later...
United Amateur.
Yes.
I love
This is not the first story that has been published in the United Amateur from
Okay,
Lovecraft.
I know, but I don't, as you know, I don't remember
Can't
anything.
remember
Yes.
anything. And it was later published, of course, like everything else, in Weird Tales. I want to say in like 1926 or something. But, interestingly enough, I did look at the publishing history of this because this is one of the early, not the first, but one of the very early dream cycle stories of Lovecraft. So only tenuously connected to the Cthulhu mythos that we all tend to associate with Lovecraft, but this is the other thing that he wrote in quite a bit, right?
Okay.
And so that would cover stories like Polaris, which was the first one, Cats of Ulthar, The Doom That Came to Sarnath, and a few others. So interestingly, the dream cycle of what this is all part of was not collected until 1995 as a body of work, which is very interesting, right? In published form. It was the Del Rey publishing of the Dream Cycle of HP Lovecraft, Dreams of Terror and Death from Del Rey. That was surprising to me that it took that long, right? Because there was like this big resurgence of Lovecraft in the 80s, but it wasn't until 1995 that they were all collected together. And so that includes what I already mentioned a few. Memory is in there, Nyarlathotep is in there, Azathoth is in there, The Descendant, The Thing in the Moonlight. All of these we have covered, by the way, because the horror stuff tends to be longer, and I tend to not read those. But I'm committed. I'm committed to a longer story after this. But yeah. So this is all dream cycle stuff, and it follows the adventures of one Basil Elton.
Hello, Austin. I'm Basil Exposition with British Intelligence.
Excellent. And Basil Elton, he's a lighthouse keeper, and he longs for something more than his life as a lighthouse keeper, even though this is a family business. His grandfather and his father kept this lighthouse before him. And he keeps this lighthouse. And then on the full moon, the white ship often appears.
How do they meet women to keep having the babies?
The Eltons? I think they bud.
They do.
Yeah. Yep. They reproduce asexually.
Okay.
In the
Well,
lighthouse.
no wonder he's bored.
Right. Which would probably be preferable for Lovecraft. He was
That's true.
notably anti-sexual. I don't know. I mean, I imagine they like leave the lighthouse every once in a while, probably during the day when you don't need it.
Yeah, I guess so.
On clear days, they can go out and woo the ladies. Where? We don't know. It's not mentioned. Somewhere in New England.
Yep.
I think is in the text. It's somewhere in New England. But you can usually presume with Lovecraft it's in New England.
Right.
There's some fiction, mostly from Chaosium and Fantasy Flight, so role-playing games and board games, that puts this lighthouse in Kingsport, which, as you might remember, is the location of the festival. And Kingsport is not mentioned like what state it's in.
Mm-hmm.
I like to think it's New Hampshire. I don't know why.
Why New Hampshire?
I don't know. It's got a rocky coast, right? I mean, New Hampshire's not really known for its beaches.
Oh, I guess not. I guess it never even occurred to me that New Hampshire was on the coast.
Going north, you have Connecticut, Rhode Island, Massachusetts. New
All right.
Hampshire is on the coast
God,
of that region.
Such a stupid American.
You're just a hayseed Texan. You don't know nothing about these
Those
New
tiny
Englanders. Yeah, and they're all tiny states. They barely even count. Don't worry, they'll be part of Canada soon. We won't have to worry about it anymore. So I like to think it's in New Hampshire. Pretty close, right, to Arkham, Massachusetts. And I would go so far as to say that in the named cities in the Lovecraft Oeuvre, the rankings go Arkham, number 1, Arkham, Massachusetts, followed by Innsmouth, which is also Massachusetts probably, but like real north, like northern Massachusetts, followed by Kingsport. So I think Kingsport is a fairly important city, and like Chaosium, like I said, like Chaosium kind of like shoveled everything that wasn't specifically about Deep Ones, which go to Innsmouth, right? And specifically about Arkham and Miskatonic into Kingsport. So Kingsport is like this nexus of like weird stuff. And you can probably imagine that Kingsport is where like there's probably a big old fissure in reality, and you can get to the dreamlands from there, right?
Yeah.
So that's what I like to think. But anyway, so on the full moon, this white ship appears. It doesn't matter how choppy the seas are. The white ship always sails smoothly, right? So it's already like pretty ethereal. It's captained by a bearded man, which I don't think is distinct in a robe. Yeah. So
by Noah.
Okay, I was thinking more Big Lebowski, but
Oh, that's even better. By the dude? Yeah.
Yes.
Captained by the dude.
That or his dudeness or Duder or, El Duderino if you're not into the whole brevity thing.
I'm trying to imagine the dude.
hey, man, it's played in his Credence.
Just drinking his White Russian.
Mm-hmm. And one night,
That's way better.
Basil says, "You know what? F it, I'm going." And he crosses a bridge of moonbeams.
This is 100% he found some pretty tasty mushrooms. And was like, I'm going to give these a try.
Mm-hmm. And then they go on an island tour. And
It's much more than a 3-hour tour.
For a 3-hour tour.
No, yeah, it's literally eons
Yes.
is how long this thing takes. And so they go to a bunch of cities. And
I wouldn't say they go to a bunch of cities.
they witness a bunch of cities.
They sail by a bunch of places where he's told he can't go. And I'm like, what is the frickin' point of this journey then?
Kind of a garbage cruise.
Yes. Sorry, we don't have any
You did
ports at
not
all.
pay. So this is how cruises work, right? Like you
gotta
have to
pay-
pay ahead of time
Yeah, you got to pay the
for the excursions. What are they called?
port fee. Yeah, they're excursions. I'm sure there's some kind of fee for like going ashore that's included in your trip, but you don't have to.
You don't have to
Going
like
to
earmark them
shore-
ahead of time?
No, going to shore is not an excursion. That's just getting off the ship.
Okay.
But you can pay for like you're gonna go swim in, a weird waterfall cove or something like that. If you're gonna go somewhere where they take you. Then
Okay. Well, he didn't pay for any of that. So
no, he didn't. He forgot his passport. So
right.
he
He
get
didn't
off
bring
the
his
ship.
passport. Shouldn't leave the ship. Which, I mean, it was kind of a spur of the moment,
Yeah. Yeah.
decision. So the first city that they sail past is the city of Zar, where dwell all the dreams and thoughts of beauty that come to men and then are forgotten.
Mm-hmm.
So it reminds me. You have a look like you have a thing to say about that.
No.
No.
I'm just still laughing about the fact that there's so much about. Look at this awesome, amazing place. Yeah, you can't go there.
Don't go. The description of it reminds me of the library of unwritten books in Morpheus's castle in The Endless.
Yeah.
Because it's all the dreams and thoughts of beauty that once came to men, but then were forgotten. So it's like where all your like flitting. Wouldn't
Oh
it
my
be
God,
cool
I
if
have so many
like
of those.
yeah? Well, that's where they all
I
go.
have super contribute. They have like an entire building with my name on it. I'm such a contributor. That reminds me of the time that my grandmother and I came up with the idea to put butter in like a deodorant kind of thing, and then that's how you rub it on
Like
the
an
corn.
applicator.
Yeah, that's how you rub it on the corn. And we thought, ha ha ha, that's so funny. And then years later, I saw it on the Sky Mall catalog, and I was like, damn it!
That does sound handy. It's too bad that you left it in the city of Zar.
Yep.
The next city they go to is Thalorian. Thalorian. I don't remember how
I
to
don't know
pronounce
either.
it.
I assumed it was DeLorean, but
Thalorian, like DeLorean.
Wait a minute, Doc.
We're going with that. Thalorian is the city of 1,000 wonders, wherein reside all those mysteries that man has striven in vain to fathom.
there's only 1,000 of those?
Just 1,000. I think it's supposed to be maybe a metaphorical 1,000, just a lot of wonders, but that sounds dumb.
$1 million.
100 million wonders. So it sounds super cool. And he's like, oh, let's go there. And he's like, nope.
Nah.
Therein walk only demons and mad things. They are no longer men. And the streets are white with unburied bones.
I'm like,
and like, whoa, you got to lead with that.
Right. Yeah, why are you telling me it's a city of 1,000 wonders? It's beautiful, awesome, but also covered in bones.
Also, it's paved with bones,
Yes.
which is pretty dope.
So what you're telling me is that a gravedigger could do well there. Like they clearly
Do you
are
think
in
it's
need of one.
litter? Like it's littered with bones?
Yeah, I'm telling you that I don't think that they have a gravedigger in this city.
Yeah.
And they're just like, well, we just got to leave this corpse here to rot, I guess. Cause,
I was assuming that the bones become the streets. Like, like they're paved with bones and
It
teeth.
doesn't say paved. What does it say? Okay, where's the exact? The streets are white with the unburied bones of those who have looked upon.
So just like drifts of skeletons is what you're imagining?
That is legit what I thought.
Well, I mean, and that probably makes more sense because how did these skeletons get there? It's everyone who gazed upon the Edolan Lothi who rules there. And so Lothi sounds like a kind of a Medusa figure that like you just look at her and you drop dead.
Yeah,
On the
'cause
spot. Or all your skin rockets off your body all at once. All of your skin and organs explode out of your body. You are now a skeleton and then you fall over.
I can't imagine that there's a scenario where they have a factory somewhere where they take these bones and build them into
Grind them up into cement.
into brick pavers. No,
That's
it's
kinda
just- it's
all
just
I want
littered with
now.
Bones. Yeah.
Look, if I was Lord of the Underworld, I would definitely have a bone to cement factory.
Yeah, that's just recycling.
Right, I know. It's probably all right? I mean, it's all calcium. I don't know how it would
It's
do.
probably not very.
Not great in the rain.
No.
Yeah. Okay, impractical. Moving on.
Lord of the Underworld got really tired of slipping every time it rained.
Yes. Now we're going to go visit Zura,
Yes.
the land of pleasures unattained. And so here's the deal with Zura. It's quite beautiful and alluring and wonderful. But then when you get closer and the wind grows stronger, the air is filled with the lethal charnel odor of plague-stricken towns and uncovered cemeteries. Ooh.
What is that? Just mean that it's not roofed? Like, what is an uncovered cemetery?
I assume they're all like open graves and rotting meat and stuff.
Okay.
Yeah, so I took this.
Once again,
Yes.
gravedigger.
Yeah,
Could
there's
make some
really
serious
like a
bank
real
there.
undertaking
Yeah.
opportunity.
Undertaker, that's the word I couldn't think
Yes.
of.
The mortuary sciences.
Yeah.
Yeah. I take Zura to be, it's so like the first two, right? Like it's the dreams that you once had, but then you forgot. The second one is the mysteries that you can't figure out. And then the third one, it's like unattainable beauty and the pleasures unattained, right? I see it as a very kind of Puritan view of like sex, where like, oh yeah, it's beautiful and wonderful, but if you attain this pleasure, you're getting syphilis.
Oh.
That's
did
how I
not
read
think
it.
about-
But
okay.
of course, well, Lovecraft is rather famously chaste. He definitely would not describe himself as a Puritan. He fucking hated those guys.
Yeah. So would he be like a romantic or
Aromantic.
asexual? Or, yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
Ace and Aro.
Okay.
I don't know. Probably. I don't know. I don't ever read his letters because
Yeah. We haven't gotten there yet.
we haven't gotten there and probably never will. Yeah, like he has close relationships, and of course he was married.
Well, yeah, but that's just
yeah.
what people did.
But that's what people did. But yeah, he had like, I don't know, and it's like, I don't know, people get bent out of shape if you like start calling him gay, and he probably was just like, I think you're right. I think he's just like strictly like asexual. There's no good evidence had any kind of romantic relations with anyone. And then finally, they dock at Sona Nil. There's neither time nor space.
It just sounds like a cough medicine.
It does. Like, it does. It does sound like a cough medicine or a sleep aid or something.
For sure.
The NYL, like every time I saw it, I could only think of NyQuil.
Yep.
And I did some etymology on it, and like there's nothing there, right? It's just kind of made up, right? But like the Sona sounds like somnambulant or snoring or something like that, right? So anyway, Sonanel, there is neither time nor space, nor suffering nor death, and there I dwelt for many eons. And so he's there a long time.
Yeah.
And Sonanel is like, I kind of think of it as it is like literally timeless, which is why you can spend eons there, right? Like there's no aging, there's no nothing, right? So everything is fixed, and everything then, of course, it's a very like, I think, Christian view of heaven, like a Christian 6-year-old's view of heaven, where it's like, oh, everything's wonderful, and I'm going to be with grandma and my dog. And
Yeah, it sounds really boring.
it is incredibly boring, which is exactly what happens, right?
Yeah.
He's there. He's like, this is great forever.
Forever and ever.
And so, but then he gets this idea. And he gets this idea because he spies the azure bird flying around again. And this is an azure bird that they were following from like halfway through. It doesn't start off. The bird doesn't start with them, but the bird shows up, right? And he's like, well, this is cool, but can we go to Cathuria? Because it's like the next one over. And the sailors are like, no, you can't go to Cathuria. It's not real. It's not even real. And he's like, no, it definitely is.
Because this whole paragraph about Cathuria makes him sound like a toddler. He's like, at night, or like a little kid. The streets and gardens are lit with gay lanthorns fashioned from the 3 colors, and then this, and it has marble houses, and it's super pretty, and
Yeah, yeah. And so all of these
It's like,
descriptions.
clearly, it's like, where did you hear about this?
Yes,
This
he's
sounds a little
making
too good
all.
to be true.
He's making all of it up. He doesn't receive this wisdom from anywhere.
No.
He's just like
decided that
this must be it, right?
Yeah.
And so Cathuria, it's the land of hope, and it's like the land of not boring Sonanil mainly is why he wants to go there.
Yeah, there's just candy,
Yeah,
chocolate, rivers made of chocolate.
it's a Wonka place.
Lego as far as the eye can see.
It's as if the Wonka Candy Factory and Legoland got smashed together, and that's Cathuria. Now, the name Cathuria, this is the only one that seems to have like any real etymology on it. And I'm going to tell you exactly what it is right now because I'm going to boring it up. Are you ready?
Yes, I am, Mr. Clavin.
Well, Nami. So early on, when Europeans were figuring out what the world looked like, there was this land of Cathay, which was described by Marco Polo, and it is basically northern China. And for centuries, right, from like the 13th century through the beginning of the 17th century, there was a region of Central Asia, which we now know is like Mongolia and China, is labeled as Cathay. And so I think that's where part of this, the Cath, right, part of this place is called. And Cathay is always like anytime you talk to Europeans in the 14th century, it's exactly this. It's like, and there's candy and everything is, and everything is paid with gold and silver and it's wonderful.
I never have to do homework and I can stay as late as I want.
And it's this magical far off place, right? And then the Uria, right, part of Cathuria, I think, is derived from Lemuria. It was a hypothetical sunken landmass in the Indian Ocean that connects like India and Madagascar, but it sunk long ago, right, for whatever reason, and which immediately evokes like Atlantis and all the Fortean stuff, and it was originally like an early hypothesis of like, well, how come all of the animals on like Madagascar and the eastern coast of Africa, how come they're so similar to some of the animals in India, right? And it's like, oh, well, there must have been this connecting land bridge. Maybe, right? And it was like not a great science, but it was like an idea. But boy, oh boy, the occultists really ran with it.
They always do, don't they?
Yeah, and so they were like, Lemuria, oh, and also that's where all the gods are from, and dragons, and all that, right? So it became like this very fantastical place. So I think Cathuria is meant to evoke both like the mysteries of the Orient and the lost continent of Lemuria. That's what I think. Dun, dun, dun,
I like it. Yeah. No, that's good.
But yeah, it's a magical, amazing place that he made up. So, so he finally convinces the crew of the white ship to take him there. Okay. And it doesn't go great, Bob.
No, they've just said that this is, this is the thing that drives me crazy. It's the lost phenomenon of where you keep vital information from somebody else, even though you should probably convey that information. The guy's just like, no, we shouldn't go. We shouldn't go. I'm not going to tell you why. We just shouldn't go. And like,
Right.
of course you're going to be like, well, then let's go.
Then that's all I want
that's all
now.
I want is to go. And what if you say like, oh, we're going to go there. We don't know it's there, but I know you can never come back here. And it's probably awful and bad. Like, say that.
Well, it's even worse.
Yes, it is.
It turns out that not only does Cathuria not seem to exist, but they accidentally fall off the edge of the
Which
earth.
is pretty depressing. The land of hope does not exist.
Right? I know, right? Like this is where like the nihilism comes in.
Yeah.
Like Lovecraft's like early nihilistic thought.
Man, they were nihilists, man.
Huh?
They kept saying they believe in nothing.
Niles. Fuck me.
It's like, oh yeah, let's go to Land of Hope. Oops, that means you die.
Right.
And so so they fall off the edge of the earth, and then he wakes up. What happened? It's only been a few hours. And he looks up and he's like, oh no, the lighthouse light is out.
Oh.
And he wakes up just in time to see a shipwreck that he is definitely responsible for.
Oh, man.
And that's the end of the story.
Yep. That was a pretty good ending, though. I do. Yeah.
Yep. It was all a dream. So a little bit more about the story. So the inspiration of the story, to longtime listeners and readers of Lovecraft, this will come as no surprise. It is very Dunsanayan. Lovecraft pulled, especially in dream cycle stuff, a lot of his inspiration from Lord Dunsany. And who's Lord Dunsany? Well, let me tell you. I think we've gone over some of this in other dream cycle stuff, but I read more about him today. And Lord Dunsany was born Edward John Morton Drax Plunkett.
Wow.
And he is the 18th Baron of Dunsany, and in Ireland.
I would 100% rather have that name than be called Lord Dunsany.
Well, that's how you did it when you were a baron.
So, yeah.
You just get called the name of the place you're the baron of. And Dunsany, I think, is the second oldest writing in Ireland. And I found a little write-up. I didn't even know that this was here on the Lovecraft fandom page about Lord Dunsany.
Oh.
He was a writer, right? This is how Lovecraft knew him. He worked with Yeats and Lady Gregory. He received an honorary doctorate from Trinity College in Dublin. He was a chess and pistol shooting champion of Ireland, which I assume is the same sport.
Right, yes.
It's like chess boxing.
Yeah, that was what the biathlon used to be.
Yes, it's chess and pistols. And he traveled and hunted extensively.
No,
So
I'm
he's
just-
like
yeah.
an adventurer
Yeah.
who also wrote a bunch of like fantasy
Well, that
stuff.
sounds cool.
He was cool as hell. And I found that, like, I'm like, okay, well, I've always heard this, right? That, like, Lord Dunsany is the inspiration for a bunch of Lovecraft dream cycle stuff. How true is that? Because it was, like, I've read that, like, okay, well, HP Lovecraft, like, learned about Lord Dunsany in 1919 and then went, like, completely bananas for it. And, like, that's all he did, like, from that point on. But Polaris was written in 1918, which is the first of the dream cycle. So, like, that theory, like, you can be aware of things, right? And just do, like, fantasy stuff that happens to be Dunsanayan, but it's not, like, I don't see Lovecraft, like, Lovecraft must have known about it before 1919. But here's the thing. In his autobiography, Lord Dunsany talks about that time he went to America and he gave a lecture in Copley Square in Boston. And it was in October of 1919. And in the audience was one HP Lovecraft. And it's like a throwaway line, apparently, in his biography. Like, he had no idea that Lovecraft was there. And Lovecraft was like big anime eyes, right?
There he is, my one and only senpai. Say hi to senpai.
And Lovecraft later wrote about, like, that trip and how it was
Yeah.
a big deal for him, and he went with all these other people and blah blah blah, and he went with a bunch of other amateur writers,
Oh, okay.
and they were like super stoked. So, like, clearly that wasn't the day that he learned about this, right? He
Right.
must have learned about it, like,
Right.
at some point.
Yeah.
Dunsany was writing all of his fiction. It was getting published in around 1910, so he had many years, right, to
Yeah.
run into him ahead of time. So anyway, there you go. So mystery solved, as far as I'm concerned.
Done and done.
And so this story in particular quite closely echoes a piece of Lord Dunsany.
Does it?
And the piece is entitled The Idle Days on the Yann. And that was published in 1910. And it's a story about a ship that goes down a river. It's a river,
Okay.
which is very different.
It's totally different. Totally different.
And sails past a bunch of fantastic cities that they can't go to until they get to the gate at the end, at which point the river dumps out into the sea and he gets off. And then once he gets off, he realizes he can never go back.
Okay.
Yeah,
You can check out, but you
Yeah.
can never leave.
right. And it's 4 cities that on Idle Days of Vienna, it's 4 cities they sail past, all that. So it's basically beat for beat. Oh, and the ship's name in the riverboat's name in the Idle Days of Vienna is called the Bird of the River. Aw.
Oh.
Bum, bum, bum.
Wow. I feel like that's a little problematic.
Well,
I mean, I don't know.
it's a river, not an ocean.
Is his story better? Whose story is better?
Lovecraft stories better
okay.
and shorter.
All right.
I skimmed a bunch of Idle Days of Vienna. And Lovecraft, for modern audiences, Lovecraft is a little bit of a chore, right? The language is a little bit clunky and very purple at some points. Kind of hard to machete your way through. The Idle Days of Vienna is significantly more overwrought than anything Lovecraft has written.
Wow, that's saying something.
Yeah, I mean, it's earlier, right? It's 1910. He was writing in 1880s, 1890s stuff. Now, Lovecraft mimics that style specifically, but I do think it isn't until you actually read Lord Dunsany that you start to appreciate the Americanization that Lovecraft brings to it. So, and Dunsany fans, come at me.
God, we're going to have them showing up at our doorstep.
I know.
Angry.
Right, with their shillelaghs.
What's that?
What's a shillelagh? It's a big-ass stick that
Oh,
used to
I
beat
didn't know
people.
That sounds super Irish.
Mm-hmm. It's quite Irish.
Yeah.
We're recording this, I think, the day before St. Patrick's Day, by the way.
Oh, yeah.
So hopefully we release it probably the evening before St. Patrick's Day.
Yeah.
So it's pretty Irish. So there was that, right? So there was the Lord Dunsany connection there. Anytime I read a Lovecraft story that is set in the Dreamlands, I always think of the Dream Eaters, which is the Arkham Horror, the Living Card Game expansion that takes place in and around the Dreamlands. And I still like it a lot.
I do too, yeah.
I would say at this point, it's top 3. I really like the mechanic of the split party, where you have some of the adventure is in the Dreamlands and some of the adventure is in the real world, and the whole goal is to link those up and all
You
that.
do a whole Flatliners thing.
Exactly. It's very Flatliners, and I love it. It's really good. And specifically, and I was so when I started reading The White Ship just for this, right? I'm don't they go to the moon at one point? And they don't. They don't go to the moon. But they do go to the moon in Dream Eaters. So one of the scenarios is you get on the White Ship, and there's a guy with a beard and a man bun for some reason in the text.
I'm the dude.
And he gets you on. Yeah, it is the dude.
I feel like the dude would have been really happy with the man bun. The man bun
Renaissance. Yeah.
Renaissance. I don't know.
Yeah, it was a Renaissance.
Yeah.
So Jeff Bridges does do the bun at one point
Does
to get
he?
his hair out of his
Okay.
face
Okay.
in it, but
All
it's
right.
not part of his
Yeah.
identity.
Right. Yeah.
The robe and the White Russians are
Yes.
definitely the identity. The bearded captain shows up. He takes you on the boat, and the PCs, right? And that's in Dark Side of the Moon, right? And you sail off, and then you're like, hey, I can't feel the ship rocking anymore. What's going on? Well, it turns out that they sail over the edge of the world, just like in White Ship, but they keep going.
Oh.
And that's how you get to the moon in that one. So, which I like a lot. I thought it was super cool.
That's kind of cool.
Yeah.
I like that.
It's very Little Prince kind of style.
Yeah, you're right.
So I like that. And every time we talk about Dreamland stuff, I always talk about Arkham Horror. What else do I have in here? And that's it. That's all my notes. That's all my notes on the story.
All right.
So check out Arkham Horror. Try to check out Arkham Horror Dream Eaters. It's out of print right now.
Really?
Yeah, and they never released a return to Dream Eaters. And
Now I just want to go back and play more.
yeah,
Let's play again.
we just finished out Dunwich Legacy, or Dunwich Legacy.
Dunwich,
I'm trying to
yes.
be very good at pronouncing it Dunwich. All right, well that's it. Do you have anything else for the story? Did you like it? What's your impressions?
I did surprisingly like it. I mean,
Yeah.
it's once again not a story where nothing really happens.
Right.
But it was, I don't know, it was nice. I liked it.
Cool.
Yeah.
All right, well, we got some mail, a couple pieces of mail. One of them is significantly longer than the other, so I'm going to go with the short one first.
All right.
Alan wrote in, and they just finished episode 64 and noticed that we said in episode 64 that I honor requests for stories.
Yay!
And so he requested The White Ship. Alan, you're welcome.
Oh, you didn't even tell me
No.
that. Wow.
He had looked in his email, and 2 years ago, he had requested The White Ship, so mission accomplished. He said specifically, however, I notice in my early email from nearly 2 years ago that I requested the white ship and it has yet to be covered. You've made a liar of yourself, Todd.
Oh my God, you have.
You cad. I demand recompense. And so I did admit that the shame I brought upon my house and family and immediately went to go read The White Ship. So that's why we're reading The White Ship today.
Sorry about that, Alan.
Sorry, Alan. Yes, but if you have a request for a story, hit me with it and I will nail it. The second missive we got from our electronic mail is from Lord Samuel. Do you remember Lord Samuel?
Now that's a name I've not heard in a long time. A long time.
So, back in episode 42, recall that we're in episode 66 right now.
So approximately 6 years ago.
Approximately 6 years ago. After the discussion, it was during the discussion of the invisible monster, Lord Samuel had written a poem to us that I had read to you.
Yeah.
And it was great and it was amazing. And so he's back.
Okay.
He's back 2 years later.
He never went anywhere.
He never went away.
Yeah. He just bides his time.
That's right. Like the dude.
I don't know about you, but I take comfort in that. It's good knowing he's out there.
This is a very dude-heavy episode. It's kind of long, and so I thought of I should summarize this and just basically get to the gist of it, but it's really good. And so I thought I would just read it in its entirety to you.
Go for it.
It is a counterpoint to our recent analysis of The Outsider. You recall, it's probably autobiographical, Lovecraft in his hideous face, etc.
Oh yeah.
Right.
Yes, we have an analysis of that. Okay.
Yeah, that's what this show is, honey. It's literary analysis. And yeah, so here he's back and it's amazing. Okay. I'm going to do it in the voice of Lord Samuel. It has been a year since our last correspondence, and I apologize for my absence. I've been exploring the Vale of Pnath. In your recent discussion of The Outsider, it seems you interpret the story as a tale of social rejection and self-hatred. While I agree that it carries autobiographical elements from Howard, I interpret it as a narrative of triumphant self-discovery. The narrative commences with the protagonist roaming the only environment they have ever known, their origins shrouded in obscurity, and their understanding of the external world limited by a childlike ignorance. This parallels early childhood, a period during which individuals lack recollection of their own birth and exist within confined spaces, their experiences dictated by parental control. Exploration beyond these boundaries is minimal, often restricted to indirect exposure through media such as books and libraries. At this stage of development, self-awareness remains largely undeveloped. At the midpoint of the book, the narrator initiates an escape attempt, leading to a pivotal revelation. The setting has been underground all along. This aligns with Plato's allegory of the cave, wherein an individual unknowingly exists in a distorted perception of reality. Ghoulie Boy has lived in isolation, maintaining a flawed understanding of both the external world and the self. Carl Jung associates subterranean spaces with the unconscious mind. Through a Jungian perspective, the act of ascending the tower symbolizes the narrator's transition into conscious awareness and intentional action. This journey represents a self-driven liberation from a previous, inaccurate worldview. In the final scene, Ghoulie disrupts a gathering and is confronted with the painful reality of social rejection. Those outside his familiar environment do not accept him as he is, they cast him out. As an inherently social creature, a human categorizes others into in-groups and out-groups, forming divisions based on family, sports teams, politics, nationality, race, and gender. Ghoulie finds himself labeled an outsider, much like the protagonist in Camus' The Stranger. Initially, I'm almost done.
It's okay.
Initially, his ignorance prevents him from fully understanding the significance of this rejection. It is only through literal self-reflection, staring into a mirror, that he recognizes the truth. His very nature is perceived as abhorrent, causing distress to those around him. Ghoulie acknowledges this pain of rejection, stating, "But in the cosmos there's balm as well as bitterness. Yet he does not succumb to despair. Though he returns to the church, this should not be seen as an act of resignation. Instead, he fully embraces his incongruent nature, seeking out others like himself, fellow ghoulie boys and girls, to roam and revel in their existence. Rather than being defined by those who reject him, he finds belonging on his own terms." I guess the takeaway here is that you should keep telling your son he has a big head.
I forgot about that. He have big head.
Mm-hmm. Thank you, Lord Samuel. We always appreciate your writings.
God, that was good.
Please don't write for another 2 years.
It just makes me feel dumb.
Yeah, and so also Lord Samuel just went to an extreme metal show in Baltimore.
Extreme metal.
Yes, extreme metal, which is how an old person would
Yes.
describe it, right?
Yes.
He went to one in Baltimore. He went to what's it called? Baltimore Death Fest? No, Maryland Death Fest.
I love it.
And he makes a case that Lovecraft has a significant influence on the metal scene and is just
for sure.
behind like Tolkien and Christianity.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
Because, I mean, most, like, real good... I am not a metal fan. I know nothing about metal, but the metal that I do know of, the good ones are, like, nerds.
oh yeah, sure.
So,
Yeah, and they read,
yeah.
you know. And he gave us a Spotify playlist, which I'll put in the show notes.
Ooh.
And then that had inspired me to figure out how the hell do you share an Apple playlist.
Oh,
And
that's
so,
what you want to figure out.
Yeah,
Okay.
so now I have a public profile. I'm going to put it in the show notes. And I have the playlist that we use whenever we play
Oh,
Arkham
that's
Horror, the
good.
Dream Eaters.
Yeah.
And it's called Dreams and Nightmares. And it's all just like pop songs that mention or are about dreams
Yeah.
and sleep and nightmares. So, and I like it a lot. I like that playlist a bunch.
Yeah. If anybody wants my dad rock playlist, feel free to write in. Get that to you.
If
too.
you want the Dad Rock playlist,
Yeah.
we'll put it up there.
I'm very proud of that one.
I have 3 game playlists now published, and one is the Dreams and Nightmares. I have one for Twilight Struggle, which is all U.S. versus USSR stuff and very 80s because it's heavily inspired by the Americans. And then one for Pandemic Legacy, which we've been playing lately.
Yeah, that's right.
And I don't know. I love all these playlists.
Yeah,
They're all
they're
great.
good.
So I'll put those. I'll put a link in the show notes, and you can listen along. If you are an Apple Music subscriber and somehow figure out how to load it on your web browser, which is not easy, but it is possible because I figured it out after much trying. Anyway, I think that's it. If you want to write in, you have many ways to contact us. We are Podsothoth on defcon.social, which is a Mastodon instance in the Fediverse. I don't pay any attention to Twitter or Facebook or Instagram, but you can also reach us through Bandcamp if you just search for Podsothoth on Bandcamp. Shut up. I love my album. It's our album, The Fungi from Yoggoth. No, what's it called? Speakeasies on Yoggoth. And you can even pay us if you care to. We do still have a couple subscribers. People tend to come in and out, and because they realize that we only publish like once a month,
Right? Yeah.
and randomly in that month.
Totally understandable.
Yeah.
By the way.
But you know, every little bit helps. I think we're clearing all of our hosting costs. We're not clearing any of our labor costs yet.
Oh, well, of course, you put much more labor into it than I do. I'm
Yes.
like, what are you talking about? This is hardly any work.
It's like an hour a month. Who cares? But yeah, there's a link at the bottom of the show, almost always in whatever podcast app you look at, where you can send us money, and people do that every once in a while. Or you could buy our band stuff. we need more merch, obviously.
Yeah.
We need like a storefront for merch
Yeah.
because we've been wanting to make more politically aware
Yeah.
Lovecraft stickers to
Yeah.
stick places. So keep an eye out for that. We'll toy with this a little bit more. Hopefully by the next episode we'll have some merch store up there. If you have a merch store that you like, let us know what you like because like they all seem kind of shady. Etsy is, kind of scumbaggy.
It used to be so good, and now it's just like drop shippers.
Yeah. But yeah, if you have one that you like, let us know. We'll use it. As you know, we don't use like Twitter or Facebook or Instagram or, things that people use.
Right.
So that's kind of on brand for us.
We're cool.
That's right. Because we do care. But with that, we'll leave you be. Thank you so much for listening. Join us next time. And by us, I mean me, next time, when I read another Lovecraft tale of horror and the macabre. That's it.
Perfect.
Ladies, find yourself a man who looks at you like Lovecraft probably looked at Dunsany.